Welcome back to the Red Dice Diaries. Now, I don't know if you're aware or not, but there's been a lot of talk recently amongst the OSR anchorites about what the OSR means to various people. And different podcasters have given their own different ideas, and I did an episode on it a while back. And to be honest, a lot of the discussions along fairly similar lines. Now, I don't want to quash the discussions, so I'm going to use an analogy. So after the theme tune, I'm going to crack on and tell you a bit more about that. Okay, so just on the off chance that you're not familiar with what an analogy is, it's a comparison between two things for the purposes of explanation or clarification. Now, I'm going to explain, in inverted commas, D&D and the OSR to varying degrees using another popular three-letter acronym, a delicious three-letter acronym, the BLT. That's right, that king among sandwiches, the bacon, lettuce and tomato. So, why is an RPG like a BLT? Well, let's start with the creation of the BLT. Now, I make mine like this. I fry a couple of rashers of smoked bacon, slice a tomato or two, pick some leaves off a lettuce, put them on a slice of a white unbuttered bread, put some mayo on the top, slap another slice of white unbuttered bread on as a lid, and then devour mercilessly. So that's how I make a BLT, but even at this stage we're off to a bit of a sticky start. Now, despite me specifying quite clearly this is how I make a BLT, someone will assume that I'm attempting to exclude or throw shade on vegetarians, vegans and other people with restricted diets because I've not specifically mentioned them, or put some cringeworthy disclaimer saying other sandwiches are available. Then some people will exclaim, oh, you can't use unbuttered bread, or you shouldn't use smoked bacon. Again, this is despite me stating clearly that this is how I make a BLT. We see this in roleplay when someone talks about how they like to run a game or how they work a particular system. And often you'll get people jumping down their throat because it doesn't jibe with their own ideas, despite the fact the person isn't saying this is how you've got to run your game. They're just saying this is how I run my game. So we've heard how I make my BLT. Now, there's probably some people out there who make it in exactly the same way as me, but I'd bet there's a large number of people who don't. Some people will use tomato sauce instead of mayo. Some people don't like lettuce or any particular kind. Others may prefer wholemeal or brown bread. Some people want a bit of butter or a bit of low-fat spread on their bread. And some people substitute corn or something similar for bacon. Now, it'd be easy for me to look at all these BLTs crafted by the hands of others than my own and shout down at them loudly, "But that's not a BLT!" And we see this in RPGs when someone will talk about changing or hacking a game, and inevitably someone pipes up and shouts, "It's not D&D!" or whatever. It happened loads when 4th edition came out. I wish I had tuppence for every time someone had shook their fist in the direction of WotC HQ and screamed, "It's not proper Dungeons and Dragons!" like some insane stormcaller stood on a wind-swept cliff. Now, whilst these other sandwiches might not fit the strict definition of a BLT, as long as the people making them enjoy them, it's not like it actually affects my sandwich or they're going to force me to make it in a different way. Now, at some point, some smart arse, and I'm one of these people, just ask Dave from D%R, will get on Google or an online dictionary and look up the strict definition of a BLT. And in fact, I've done it now, and Wikipedia says a BLT is a type of sandwich named for the initials of its primary ingredients, bacon, lettuce and tomato. It can be made with varying recipes according to personal preference. Note that. Simple variants include using different types of lettuce, toasting or not, or adding mayonnaise. So, according to the strict definition, mayonnaise isn't even in there. More pronounced variants can include using turkey bacon or tofu in place of bacon, or removing the lettuce entirely. The combination of ingredients on a sandwich dates back to the early 1900s, although it didn't achieve widespread popularity until after World War II, when the ingredients became more readily available all year round. referencing the sandwich by its initials rather than naming the ingredients in full did not become common until the 1970s. The BLT has been ranked as the second most popular sandwich in the US and as the UK's favourite sandwich, and damn right it should be, and is frequently referenced or depicted in media and culture. And someone, after looking this up, will go, there we are, it must have bacon, it must have lettuce, it must have tomato, anything that doesn't isn't a BLT, and that's it, there's no point discussing it further. Now, I'm a little bit ashamed to admit it that I've done this a few times in the past, and I'll probably end up doing it in the future. Hell, I'm only human. Usually it's out of weariness when a discussion has got on for ages or has become endlessly circular, and other people have quite rightly pointed out to me that I'm trying to use this to end the discussion. And I'm trying to get out of the habit of doing that. And this episode is one way of doing that, trying to find a different way, a slightly fresher way of putting that message across. I don't know if I'm succeeding or not, but hopefully you'll call in and let me know. Anyway, this brings me on to my next and final point. This analogy also works for the excessive discussion of RPG intricacies. In our analogy above, the end result of the process I went through is I have a sweet, delicious BLT to eat. Now, if I take that fully made sandwich apart to look at the ingredients, if I just lift up the lid a bit, or I adjust a lettuce leaf, it all goes back together absolutely fine. I can get to the enjoyable bit, which, let's face it, is probably the eating, certainly for me. However, if I pull all the ingredients out, dissect them all individually, trying to work out how I can adjust them to make some nigh on unattainable perfect BLT, eventually I'm just going to have a sad looking pile of crap that no longer resembles the BLT, nor can it be reassembled to be the same beautiful end piece. That said, I might have sacrificed one BLT but learnt some important lessons I can use next time I make a sandwich. However, if the next time I make a BLT I just take it apart in the same way again, I won't really be learning anything new. And this is how I feel about the excessive discussion of sort of RPGs and the nitty gritty of them. I can understand wanting to pull them apart and examine them, work out how they work, because maybe you can make it work better, maybe you can hack it to make something that suits your group more. However, I think at a certain point, analysing and taking apart these games becomes an end to itself, and almost the fact that we should be playing the game to enjoy it becomes like an afterthought, or is forgotten in the rush to pull a system apart and analyse it down to a microscopic level. Now, as with the BLT analogy, that's absolutely fine. If you take something apart, you learn some lessons, you put it back together, you can crack on with the game, you can enjoy it. And we have the advantage there with RPGs that if I take apart my poor, misbegotten BLT, after a certain point, I can't put it back together and eat it again. However, if we pull apart, in inverted commas, a role-playing game, we still have the original book there. We can always go back to the origin and we can always run the game. But I have to ask myself the question, at what point does this dissection become an end to itself rather than a simple method of finding a more enjoyable game and running a game that suits our tastes and presumably that of our players more than it did previously? So I'm going to wrap up there. I'm not going to wax lyrical about this for too long, but I hope you've enjoyed my somewhat rambling comparison of an RPG to that sweet, delicious bacon, lettuce and tomato sandwich. Other sandwiches are available. If you've enjoyed this episode, hell, if you've not enjoyed this episode, you want to ring up and disagree with me, please drop me a voicemail on the Anchor app, or you can email me, reddicediaries, or one word, @gmail.com. And if you don't like the 1 minute time limit that Anchor imposes on your recordings, you can always leave multiple messages, or you can record your message as an MP3 and send it to me via email, reddicediaries@gmail.com. I really do enjoy listening to these voicemails and responding to them in my bonus episodes. This whole community feeling is part of what makes Anchor really special to me and makes it so I'm not just shouting into the void, whether I'm shouting about BLTs or not. So thank you all for listening. I hope if you've enjoyed this episode, you'll get in touch. Until I see you next time, take care, and whatever game you're playing, have fun. I'll catch you soon.